Hi, and welcome to another episode of Piano TV. So I'm super excited for today's video because we are doing a collaboration with my friend Eric over at popmusictheory.com. Now, what Eric does is once a week he publishes a blog post on some nerdy theory topic, but he does it in a really accessible, easy to read, and interesting way. And he uses pop music as his examples for complex music theory ideas. So if that's the kind of thing you're into, definitely check out his website, popmusictheory.com, and I'm going to link the post we're collaborating on today on the screen, and in the description bar below. So the topic the two of us decided to tackle today are strong and weak beats in different time signatures. So you might not have thought about it before, but when you're listening to a song, there's definitely certain beats that get a heavier weight or emphasis than other beats, and that's what we're going to talk about today. And we're going to do it in our own ways. So over on his blog, he's going to be using pop music as his examples and stuff like that, and I'm going to be using classical music to talk about the same thing. So let's get started. Back in the Middle Ages, rhythm didn't exist like it does today. There was no structure, no bar lines. In the early days, music was often just a single melody that meandered without any real organization. But with the passing of time, music started becoming more and more complex in its written form. So harmony started becoming a thing, people started singing with multiple melodies at the same time, and as music grew more complex, the need to keep things structured and organized became more apparent and important. So that's when things like bar lines and time signatures came into existence, roughly around the beginning of the Baroque period. Time signatures work to give a song a sense of unity. So say you have a time signature that's 4/4, it's telling you that you're gonna have 4 beats in every measure. And when you hit the bar line, it basically resets the count back to 1. This adds an element of predictability to a piece, and it's something that almost all music has now, unless you're listening to super abstract music. But for the most part, unmeasured music with no time signatures is a thing of the past. So when your music has a time signature, which is basically always, there are going to be some beats that are naturally just more important than other beats. So for example, in any time signature, it doesn't matter if it's 4/4, 3/4, the first beat is always really strong. And I mean, it just makes sense. If your time signature is 4/4, like here, or 4 beats in every bar, the sound of that first beat is gonna be just a little weightier and a little bit heavier. So that strong first beat is also called the downbeat. And you've probably heard the term downbeat and upbeat before, but just to really simplify the definition here, the upbeat is the beat that's right before the first beat or the downbeat. So if you're in 4/4 time, the upbeat is going to be beat 4, and then the downbeat is going to be beat 1. But honestly, the easiest way to figure this out is to look at what a conductor does. All right, so I am not a conductor, and this might be a little bit of conducting butchery, but I am going to show you the basic 4/4 pattern with a conducting baton, which in my case is just a pencil. The reason I want to show you this is because we call it upbeat and downbeat for a very specific reason. Beat 4, the upbeat, the conductor's baton goes up, and then for the downbeat, beat 1, the wand goes down. Kind of cool. So for the downbeat, I would physically move my hand down. I'd go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then on the upbeat, my hand goes up for the upbeat. So I just want to, let me see if I can do this pattern so you can see it. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. You kind of see how that works? It's kind of all ties together. So every time signature has its own unique pattern of strong beats and weak beats. But one thing they all have in common is that the first beat of every bar is always going to be a strong beat. It always hits a little harder than the other beats. That is, unless you're getting into the topic of syncopation, in which everything you know is wrong, left means right, up means down, night is day, etc. So we'll talk about syncopation in another video because it's a whole other topic. But the least you need to know is that beat 1, always strong. So now we're gonna jump to some examples of various time signatures, like what you see on the screen here. So we're gonna look at 4/4, 3/4, 2/4, and 6/8. We're gonna leave some of the weirder ones like 9/8 for another video. So we're gonna figure out where the strong and weak beats are in these time signatures, and also what type of songs tend to use them. So since we've already been using it as an example, I want to bring up 4/4 time as our first sort of look at the strong and weak beats in a time signature. It also happens to be the most common time signature, so that's another reason we should start with it. All right, so let's look at our 4/4 example and figure out where the strong and weak beats go in this time signature. So pretty much obviously, because we were just talking about it, the first beat of each bar, the downbeat, is the strongest beat. So I have just giant S to indicate that that's a strong beat. And it just sounds the most natural. So if I was to count that 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, you can hear how that first beat just kind of, it sounds right to lean into it a little bit heavier. And additionally, the fourth beat, our upbeat, is going to be a weak beat. Now the second beat is also going to be a weak beat, which when we kind of clap through it in a second, you'll hear why. It just sounds more natural to go 1, 2, 3, 4 instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, having two accented notes right beside each other. But beat number 3, I like to put an M for medium. Some people do strongest and strong, or both call beat 1 and 3 strong. I like to think that the first beat, the downbeat, is a little stronger than the third beat. But I'm gonna clap that for you so you can kind of hear how it's weighted. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you can hear there's a little bit of emphasis on 3, but the most emphasis is on 1. And if I were to reverse that, you end up getting kind of like a syncopated rhythm that sounds really cool, but isn't necessarily natural sounding. So I'm gonna reverse the strong and weak beats here. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? Sounds cool. Sounds a little bit like rock and roll. So let's take a look at our first music example, Canon in D by Pac Bell, very famous song, which is in 4/4 time. So you can clearly see, even just by looking at the left hand, that beat 1 and beat 3 are accented throughout the piece. And this is common for 4/4 time, where on beat 1 and 3, or even just beat 1, the harmony, which in this case is the left hand, is going to change on those beats, just because they're stronger beats. And even when we get into a more detailed left hand pattern, you can still see that the harmony pattern changes on the first beat and on the third beat, which gives a natural accent to those beats. So we're gonna take a quick listen to this tune, and there's such an obvious emphasis on the first and third beats that you should be able to pick it out pretty clearly in the recording, even when the performance gets a little bit more complex. So see if you can count along in your head just to 4 in groups of 4 while you listen to hear that 4/4 rhythm. So let's move on to 3/4 time, which is still sometimes used in pop music, but it's a lot less common than 4/4 time, which, I don't know, is probably in like 90 high percentage of songs that you listen to. So 3/4 time is the time signature of waltzes and minuets, most popularly, and we're gonna be listening to a waltz as our example today. So where are the strong and weak beats in 3/4 time? So the strong beat, again, should be obvious, beat 1. Your downbeat is gonna be your strong beat. Now in 3/4 time, there aren't any medium beats like there are in 4/4. We really just have a pattern of strong, weak, weak. So if you listen to that pattern, and I'm just gonna clap it here for a second, strong, weak, weak, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. You can hear that characteristic waltz feel. So we're gonna take a listen to Waltz in A flat major by Brahms. So you can see by looking in the left hand that on the first beat, or the strong beat of every bar, you have a low bass note, which is outlined by 2 chords. This is a really typical waltz pattern where you get that sort of like bop, 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 bop sound. So when we listen to this recording, I want you to, again, see if you're able to count in groups of 3 while you're listening and hear how the strong beat propels the piece. In 2/4 time, it's super easy to figure out where the strong and weak beat are because there's only 2 beats in a bar, so you really only have 2 choices. And the choices should be obvious. So the first beat is obviously going to be the strong beat because that's the downbeat, and then the second beat is going to be your weak beat. Generally, this time signature is reserved for polkas or marches, which tend to be really fast and upbeat, but sometimes you'll also have slow marches, like Chopin has a famous funeral march, which is really like slow and somber. Even though there's some really wacky dotted rhythms in Wagner's super famous bridal chorus, which we'll listen to in a moment, of course, you'll easily notice how there's an emphasis on beat 1. That's where all the harmony changes happen again. That's your kind of like big indication that that's a strong beat, etc. So take a listen to this tune now, and I want you to, again, same as before, see if you can count in groups of 2 while you listen to this one. lastly, we'll take a quick look at 6/8 time. So I've talked about 6/8 time a fair amount before, especially the difference between 6/8 and 3/4 time in a previous video. So I'm gonna link that on the screen if you want to check that out for more information. So the two really famous 6/8 time signature tunes that I tend to really like are Lullabies and Barcarolles, which is a boat song, and they have this sort of like rocking, swaying back and forth motion. So the strong beat, again, is always going to fall on beat 1. Now 6/8 is kind of an interesting one because it goes in groups of 3, kind of sort of like the waltz beat, the 3/4. So we have strong, weak, weak, strong, weak, weak. And actually, I would probably, instead of calling this 2 strong beats, I would probably call this one a medium beat. So it's not quite as weighted as the first beat, but it does have a little bit of an emphasis. So you have strong, weak, weak, medium, weak, weak, dot, 3, 4, 5, 6. In Grieg's really famous Morning Mood, you can definitely see the 6/8 time signature is in groupings of 3, where you have your strong beat on the first beat, and then your medium beat on the 4th beat. You can kind of see that pattern continues, especially with the harmony changes in the left hand supporting that on beat 1 and beat 4. You can kind of see that down here too. So those are some of the most common time signatures that you'll come across in your piece and how the strong and weak beats are delegated within them. So thank you for watching this video. I hope you've learned something from it. And the next time you're at your piano bench or whatever instrument you happen to be playing, if you're, say, playing a song in 3/4 time, keep in mind that that first beat, it's a little bit stronger than the other beats, so it'll sound good with just like a little bit of a natural accent on it. So instead of just playing all of your notes at exactly the same volume all the time, it's gonna sound good to add a little bit of emphasis where those strong beats are. Unless it's a syncopated piece, in which, again, like I already said, all the rules are broken, so that's a topic for another day. Thank you again to Eric for collaborating with me, and again, if you haven't checked it out, definitely check out his website, popmusictheory.com, and check out the description bar below to get a link to his side of the time signature strong and weak beat story. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time. As I throw my pencil, mic drop. That was not a mic drop moment.